In the last few days, we've seen new draft documents about what a final agreement here could look like. There are still several really big outstanding questions here. And number one is the fate of the Kyoto Protocol. Several countries, led by Japan, really have said that they don't want to make a second commitment period on this because they believe that they really want this new global deal, one that includes U.S. and China, and they don't want to commit themselves to new targets if those other countries are not necessarily going to come along. So meanwhile, the developing countries are really firmly saying that Kyoto is really important. It's the only binding deal we have. We need that second commitment period. U.S. and China, I mean, that's really something we're still trying to figure out here. Earlier this week, people had a hope that China was softening some of their positioning on formalizing their emission cuts that they agreed to last year. But there was one interview with one Japanese negotiator which he seemed to indicate that they were going to be willing to make those voluntary pledges they made last year binding within an agreement. And then you had another press conference with another minister here who still really emphasized that they thought this should be voluntary. And there's still this also tension about exactly how they would, show the world that they're meeting these agreements. It's something, we call it here in UN speak, MRV or ICA. It's, transparency issues and how we figure out whether people are meeting what they've agreed to do. And so that's a big tension between the U.S. and China. And the U.S. has made it very clear that they want really clear specifics on that, and they don't think they should go forward with other parts of the deal unless they have specifics on that front. Adaptation is definitely a big focus here. A key part of the long-term cooperative agreement is whether they will formalize the decision last year that they made last year to pledge $10 billion a year for the first 3 years in Fast Start funding, and then create a $100 billion a year fund by 2020 that would both serve purposes of helping developing countries cut their emissions and helping them adapt to the changes that are already taking place. Countries informally, they agreed to that in the political accord of Copenhagen last year, and now they're deciding whether they're going to bring it under the actual UN umbrella here. There's not going to be a whole lot of details in the text here. Basically, it'll be just an agreement saying that we're going to move forward on this fund, and next year we'll figure out exactly how it works and what it looks like. They'll probably make some decisions on that in the text, but not a whole lot. The issue, though, is still that countries, particularly the U.S., have said that they are waiting on. They don't want to move only parts of the deal here. They want to move the thing as a whole, and so they're not necessarily willing to make progress only on this global climate fund if they don't make progress on the mitigation targets issue as well. So it's kind of not clear whether they actually will be able to move forward on this finance issue. I know a number of reporters have asked negotiators and delegates about it. I think the thing that's probably, especially for people who are involved in these negotiations and people who are here covering it, kind of have a sense that that's how the things that we saw in the WikiLeaks documents about climate negotiations are kind of how these things go. I don't know that there's anything that was particularly earth-shattering in there. I think people knew that there's obviously a lot of countries pushing very hard to get their particular view in the accord last year, or get their particular view, recognized in Copenhagen. So I don't know. The reaction here from most negotiators has been that they didn't really think this was anything really all that surprising. It's down to the details here. We know what the framework for an agreement looks like. It's just whether they can actually agree that is the question right now. It's a question of whether they can formalize the commitments made last year by parties, whether they can make a decision about the future of the Kyoto Protocol, whether they can, agree that they should create this global climate fund, and what that kind of basic framework of that would look like going forward. There's also, I think, an important discussion happening about what it will mean after they make these pledges here to go back and review them and decide whether they're strong enough, decide whether they're meeting the scientific goals, and so the last days are really kind of figuring out specifically what that will say. We know that those are all going to be part of it.